This is a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.
Good evening and welcome to the Brighton Central School District Board of Education Business Meeting and Budget Adoption Meeting for May 30th, 2019. As we call the meeting back to order, I do make a comment that we are, for those watching us live streaming or those here in the audience, we are starting a bit late. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss matters of potential litigation and also matters involving the employment of specific individuals. So that's why we're running late tonight. To begin with this evening, we offer the opportunity for public participation. Anyone who's here in the room with us, and a member of the public, is welcome to address the board on any matter. They can make a comment, ask a question, or make a brief statement. We ask that you keep it to a maximum of 3 minutes. Raise your hand and I'll recognize you, and I'm going to ask you to step to the podium. Dr. McGowan will give way. Give us your name and address, and then any question, comment that you wish to make. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board this evening that's here in attendance? Okay, we're all here to listen and learn, so we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Then board, please, a motion for approval of the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Marv, seconded by Larry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to Dr. McGowan, I would like to remind and recap a bit for the community, those here in attendance and those watching us, whether it be live or on streaming at a later date. This is the second meeting this week, tonight being, of course, Thursday, May 30th. On Tuesday night, we held a budget workshop, Board of Education meeting, probably about 3.5 hours length. Anyone that wants to view that, the video of that entire meeting is posted online through our YouTube channel, through the video archive system that we maintain. And that was a meeting that we worked through tremendous detail on crafting a budget that we intend to go out to the public as a revote, if you will, on June 18th. And so tonight we're here in this meeting to receive an update from Dr. McGowan and Mr. Alimo, if necessary, an update to that conversation that we had on Tuesday night. Tuesday night we did not take any formal action, but we did leave that evening with an understanding of a framework of a budget that would be at the cap number and involved a number of reductions and reassignments and changes, if you will, within our structure to get to that cap number, and to not require a 60% vote on June 18th, and not to put anyone's star rebate amount check in jeopardy of losing that based on that adoption of that budget. So I turn it over to Dr. McGowan to provide an update as to where we are this evening on a budget proposal.
Thank you. So this is the revised budget proposal. I'll walk through exactly how we've gotten to this point and where we're heading from here. What we did was review feedback, of course, shared on Tuesday night, feedback we received from the community. Anecdotally, feedback you as board members have received. We had 2 different sessions for public comment that night, and a significant amount of feedback received through the thought exchange. Over 800 people participated in that process. We reviewed the feedback, of course, and then developed revised spending and financing plans, thinking about our long-term obligations and what type of reductions right now needed to be made in order to bring our budget proposal down under the cap, which was the determination that that's where we needed to be. And also what the impact then would be on the long term and what we could do relative to financing current program, what that would mean then for a long-term impact to the budget process. We took a look then at that impact short and long term and really tried to find ways to say, what is that obligation right now to be able to protect program as much as possible, student program, which I think that most taxpayers, whether they were for or against, would like to see as much provided to kids, but of course within financial limitations. And what we could do in the short term to do that, I'm not throwing water all over the place, the short term to do that and still not risk our financial future. So define those 2 things. That's all right. It's fine. I was really warm anyways. It's cooling me off. It's good. Where we landed in terms of that feedback was that taxes were certainly too high. For one, people were very clear on they're already paying too much, taxes are too high, and that the increase itself was too high. That number, that 4.89 number, was something that people did not feel comfortable with in the community. Going over the cap was a significant concern. People felt both they couldn't afford the increase, but also couldn't afford to lose the rebate check, and were very concerned about that. We saw some interesting and concerning feedback around the reassessment and the town's reassessment of property. I want to point that out, the town's reassessment of property, because sometimes there's confusion over who's responsible for that. We are responsible for raising a tax levy based on those assessments. I don't run from that, but we didn't reassess people's property, and that was a significant concern for people, their reassessment. And that federal tax policy, which also we have zero control over, was a concern for people as well. That the idea that people didn't get refunds this year, that they're concerned about not being able to reduce their state and local tax, use as a deduction their state and local taxes was a real concern for people. That came out also in our review of the information. People are supportive of quality, and they want to support it, but simply felt that it was too much. People felt that we should be transparent in the conversation and not use scare tactics. People felt that they need to see sacrifices made. They expressed that we should live within our means and get the state aid situation figured out, but don't use it as an excuse. All feedback that we derived from it. Whether we agree with pieces of this or not, or would explain it differently, is also not what people seem to be interested in hearing. But frankly, the fact is, this is what we took away from it. Being respectful of that feedback is awfully important. The community voted. We talked a lot the other night about the idea that in the democracy, this is the last place people can vote on a tax. And the message was clear. There was not a lot of ambivalence. People said, this is not something I'm comfortable with, and we respect that. We understand that people said, you need to do something differently and think about this differently. 45% of people. One of the challenges in this is that 55% of people did support it. Probably some with reservations as well. We had a conversation today at the community budget open house with some residents about the idea that we have never tried to do things at 60%, at 51%, at small majorities. We like to be a community that develops a significant consensus around the work that we're doing, feeling as though that's the right way to be operating, respectful of everybody in the process. If we had passed at 61%, 49% of people would likely have been very upset about that in terms of who voted. So we want to be respectful of the feedback we did get, the feedback we didn't get, the feedback from 55% who said, yeah, but I was okay with it and I still wanted to live with that, and understand what they were saying to us as well, which is why we've tried to find a way to support as many programs as possible within the limitations set up by voters who did not want to support it, being respectful of that. There were a couple comments about people saying, don't think that I voted no because I don't appreciate public education or I don't want to support it. I just can't afford it at this point. So we're understanding that and being respectful. Again, us never saying to people, you don't care about kids because you voted no. You might care deeply, but you're saying, I just can't afford it. So point is, we get it. And this is where we've landed at this point and what we will work within going forward. Budget still being a statement of what we value, something we talked about in the process before. The proposed budget, we felt met and exceeded state standards. It provided funding and support of our initiatives and was respectful to taxpayers. On the right-hand side is the revised budget. We are now saying to people, okay, what I just said, we are respecting taxpayers, but honoring that commitment now to stay within the tax cap. That was a very clear message sent to us. We're going to support every child along the spectrum. We will still do that. Largely, we're going to do that because of the work of the people in this district. So let me be very clear on that. Although we regret where we are relative to program reductions, we have a significant amount of faith in the people doing this work every day that our kids will still get a pretty incredible experience. That happens each and every day, and this will still happen. It will be different. But it won't be different because of the people doing it. It will be different because of program limitations. We're going to reprioritize our existing resources to still meet our objectives. It helps us refocus on some areas that we will need to. And we will be able to provide funding for some of the most important initiatives. We just will not be able to grow those programs as we had proposed, and it will be scaled back funding. It will take longer to do some of the things that we planned on doing. Again, that's not a complaint. That is what we've been told we should be doing. The revised budget is essentially the summary and the impact on the tax levy is that we will increase the tax levy 2.34%, which is within the property tax cap calculation. The total preliminary budget amount is a change of 2.80%. The non-property tax revenues will go up 3.72%, and again, the tax levy will go up 2.34%. The impact then here locally, what does that mean for people? The rate will change 1.75% in the town of Brighton, town of Pittsford 1.74%. We do not calculate the rate differential between the towns. That's done by the Office of Real Property Tax through an equalization formula because we have properties in both towns. But essentially the rate going up 1.75% and 1.74%. $24.70 in Brighton, $24.71 in the town of Pittsford. On the right-hand side, perhaps more meaningfully, is if you're looking for your home value and what the impact for you will be. If your home is valued at $75,000, your taxes will go up $32 next year. Up to $350,000, your taxes will go up $152, and all the increments in between done it by each of the $50,000 marks. The revised budget by the object summary, just pointing out the difference between the proposed budget originally, the original adopted budget that you adopted for voter referendum, and the proposed budget and adjustments that have been made. So our adopted budget for 18-19 was $78,330,553 with 642 staff members. The proposed budget on May 21st was $81,857,906 or 651 staff members. The adjustment from that, and I have to point this out for all the legal reasons around the budget, not to just read numbers at you, but it has to be stated, is reduced by $1,335,841 or a subtraction of 7.8 staff members expressed that way. The proposed budget then for June 18th, the mandated day from the state for the revote, is $522,065. It supports 644 staff members. The adopted versus the proposed, the budget variance, is $2,191,512, or 2.8% difference in the budgeted amount. That's not taxes, that's the budgeted amount of money. So where does that leave us in terms of the object summary? We are down $716,000 in terms of salaries, and down $39,669 in the benefit area, $280,000 in BOCES area, $300,000 supplies and services, and a significant change. We are up $928,444 in debt service. We had originally proposed being up $1.2 million, and that's a variance, and we'll show you where those amounts were deferred going forward. 73% of our spending, of course, 0.31% is where it should be, which is on the people that do the work on behalf of our children. So essentially, where did this leave us? What are some of the points around this? What are we trying to get across to people? Physicians are being supported through limited grant funding and one-time borrowing from long-term financing. So people might look at it and say, well, I don't understand. You're only reducing X number of positions from the proposed budget. It doesn't seem like you cut a lot of programs. I'll go through where we did, and there is significant reductions being made. The big takeaway, though, for people is to understand next year and the year after, we will have to cut programs. So we have borrowed money, essentially from within budgeted areas that will need to be replenished. We are using funding that has been set aside for full-day kindergarten to fund 6th grade foreign language, 4th grade instrumental music. When those positions are needed, and they will be needed in the fall of 2021, in that budget process, we will then have to reduce corresponding amounts to fund those positions. Furniture and equipment are two other areas that have been reduced that will need to be replenished to purchase the things that are needed to operate. Those dollar amounts are being used to fund positions in program right now. Because the moral ethical dilemma for us was if we have opportunities to be able to finance programming for kids now, do we make that reduction because people have called for a reduction, or do we utilize funding that's available knowing we're setting up a funding cliff? We're being very upfront with the community and saying these will have to be funded. Begging the question from people, why didn't you do that in the first place? Because we have created a funding cliff that means those programs will need to be cut, period. So programs can be scheduled for future reduction, and that also gives us time to plan for program and to have a rational staff reassignment, realignment, reduction, and give people an opportunity to think through what that looks like for kids. Much more planning time than the 4 weeks between now and the end of the year for program reduction. We'll be able to reorganize and redistribute assignments. It will impact service to the community going forward in this year. We know that, and we'll detail that. There will be additional fees and program costs. It will impact community users. So whether that's CYO, whether that's Stormers, whether that's BYB, all of those programs will face charges in the coming year for their use of the facilities. Programs will have to be reduced over time if additional funding isn't received. We've talked a lot about our state aid picture, not using that as an excuse. That is where we're at. And if that money is not received, we will have to reduce program. Pragmatic approach here certainly is in play, capping our immediate growth. It allows us to refocus organizationally. And again, time for us to plan and mitigate the impact on both program and the staff impact. So what are we deferring or cutting in this proposal? Debt service, furniture, equipment, an instructional coach, the CPSC chairperson position, the family navigator position reduced in the general fund. We're now able to fund that, though, grant fund, part general fund still, and then grant funding for the remainder of that position, again, creating a funding cliff for that position. Security staff, because of a health and safety need, 2 of the 3 will be funded, 3 being proposed in the previous proposal, 2 will be funded here. For example, the construction at Council Rock wanting additional security staff there at that time is necessary. The additional funding for the diversity equity position, we will maintain the program the way it is this year, but we will not be able to add to that. A classroom teacher position at the K2 level, the Buildings and Grounds Department restructuring, athletic program assistance, all of these, in some cases being cut completely, others being deferred or reduced. Professional development, travel and conference, continuing education support, clubs and activities at the high school level, not all of them, but a partial reduction, non-mandated transportation supervision, a summer school at the 9 through 12 level, not the entire summer school, but classes that had low enrollment and won't impact the graduation of students coming up. A reduction in AIM staffing, which is able to be accomplished due to the enrollment in particular courses. A clerical position at Brighton High School that has not been filled, that has been vacant at this point, but would have been filled, will be reduced. A computer aid position at the high school, that staff member will be reassigned. Charging back the technical theater manager position to the summer arts program. So that person's salary for while they're working in that program over the summer will be charged back to that program, which will increase the fee for families. And the facility use fee, again, as I mentioned, for gym, grass fields, and rents, and substitute teacher coverage will likely correspond to the change in staff development as well, with less people out of the classroom, but it also will impact people giving assessments outside the classroom that is normally covered by substitutes to maintain instructional program for kids will not be possible. We have to be provided differently. If the vote is not successful the second time, by law, the district will have to adopt a contingency budget, and the rules around a contingency budget necessitate no tax increase from this year. That will require us to completely eliminate or significantly reduce in these following areas: foreign language, grade 6, grade 4 instrumental music, literacy coaches, instructional coaches, the family navigator position, class size 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, and electives 9, 12. Field trips, athletic program assistants, completely the assistant director of humanities position. We will have to restructure and reduce the elementary summer program, a high school assistant principal, videographer position, private parochial transportation on non-school days, professional development, travel, conference, anything that is left would have to be reduced. Continuing education, clubs and activities, further modified teams, several, non-mandated transportation supervision, extended studies, 9 through 12 summer school, and foreign language interns. Let me also point out to you, several of these items will be reduced in 2021 or 21-22 based on having to replenish the lines for full-day kindergarten, for furniture, for equipment, and the other areas that we have put off spending. Those would include foreign language, grade 6, grade 4 instrumental music, literacy coaches, instructional coaches, the family navigator position, those class size reductions and elective changes, field trips, athletic program assistants, the administrative positions, one or both, either the the assistant director of humanities or the assistant principal position. We will have to look at the French Road summer program, videographer position, the transportation situation as well, clubs and activities, modified teams, and extended studies going forward will have to also be looked at. 9 through 12 summer school, further reductions could be faced, and foreign language interns. That's the reality. That is the reality. Those non-mandated programs will all have to be slated for reduction or change going forward. Very specifically, looking at the lines relative to business administration, this is the reduction of continuing ed clerical support, down $8,000. The restructuring of the supervision in the buildings and grounds area that was budgeted for is down $25,000. $5,175. The equipment line, $45,000, also equipment, $1,800 additional equipment spending. Around the salaries for the diversity equity position is $60,000 reduction. This is just the detail to what I've already said to you. These are the very specific budget lines that need to be detailed. The $10,000 reduction in travel conference allocations from that particular line, $20,000 from the professional summer professional development line, $6,000 in travel conference professional development as well. Deferring the classroom replacement of the furniture replacement, $100,000. Again, that will need to be replenished in future budgets. Reducing equipment in the general education area and applying the contingent budget standards, $61,010. A $280,000 reduction in total for the full-time reduction in class size and deferring that planning for full-day kindergarten. So these are the positions, particularly the full-day kindergarten positions, that will have to be replenished in future budgets, and class size adjustment as well, which if class sizes grow too big or enrollment changes, will also have to be replenished at the expense of one of the programs I mentioned, the non-mandated programs. Full-time reduction, math, science, technology teacher, 0.2 reduction, AIM core content teacher as well, reducing the release time for teachers. These are the substitute coverage, the $15,000 that we mentioned. Stipends for extracurricular clubs and activities reduced $15,000. This is the high school clubs and activities. General fund support for the expansion of Family Navigator down $40,000 and utilizing Title I to create the full-time position, so we'll have to utilize that funding. One full-time reduction in the computer lab aid, maintaining access to the program using other staff members. 3 positions in the proposed budget, the $15,000 overall, and this is the security reduction. Reducing clerical support also in the main office. Equipment, $21,289, instrumental music, implying the contingent budget standards. This is equipment. Equipment, again, in furniture and special education, these all total that total reduction in equipment. The 0.15 certified salaries, or 0.25 reduction, that's the CPSE chairperson, $19,784, again, furniture and equipment. The chargeback of the theater manager position that I mentioned, $10,000, $20,000 reducing the program assistants, working with student athletes in our athletic program. Reducing the assignment of bus monitors is $3,000 and then $6,995 from a different line. And payroll reduction overall, the teacher retirement. This is the breakage that we had mentioned in the first presentation on Tuesday, additional breakage from the retirement of teachers since the first budget was developed. Salaries and wages, again, when you reduce salaries overall or reduce the number of people, you can reduce the Social Security line because you're not paying that to the federal government. That's an additional $30,669. And the financing costs around the facility improvement project of $50,000, but the remainder of the deferral of the cost of the debt service is $250,000. The total being $1,335,841. The class size issue we wanted to mention to you with the reduction of a teacher, that will bring us to 18.8 projected at this point. We will monitor that before we finalize which area that is in over the next week or so and recheck our numbers, make sure that kindergarten is the right place for that reduction, but we're anticipating that to be the case at this point. So again, to some of the questions that people might ask, well, what did you really cut? We cut professional development and instructional coaching, new funding for diversity and equity, mental health support, security. We are administratively reorganizing as well and switching 2 positions to better support those areas and thinking differently about the assignment of those duties, which will take away some of the support from the high school right now in terms of the assistant principal position, reassigning some duties. Furniture, equipment, debt service, and full-day case set-asides or spending, those all will need to be replenished. It's really important to keep pointing that out to people. I mentioned the administrative reorganization, the CPSE position, program assistance for athletics, elementary summer program, reduced high school summer program, portion of clubs and activities, clerical computer lab support, and a portion of program from the AIM program. I don't mean to be redundant and repeating these things. We just want to make sure it's clear to people what is being reduced in this second proposal. Why didn't you do it in the first place? Well, because the short-term impact on these areas, when you think about the service provided for people, is significant. And on continuous improvement, on the organization growing where we felt kids needed it the best. But the long-term need to refund those areas has created a funding cliff for those programs, and it will result in further program reductions. Had the other budget been approved, it would not have necessitated that. That is the bottom line. We wouldn't have had to do this. I want to point out again, so that it doesn't sound like crying over spilled milk or sour grapes. As financial planners, using that analogy, we came to the community with what we thought made the most sense to be able to protect program. No different than a financial planner that says, put this aside for retirement, for college costs for your family, for X, Y, and Z. And a person looks at them and says, that's great, that does make the most sense in a perfect world, but I can't afford it. The community said that to us, and that was their choice, and we respect that. And so we're saying, okay, that would have been the ideal plan. This is the second plan, and for you and your family, this might be ideal, and we're respectful of that. So that's what we've put forward. It wasn't that we wanted people to lose their rebate check or wanted to pay more money in taxes. Those are the ramifications and the results of what we were proposing, which we thought made the most sense long-term, but it didn't for everybody. And so this is where we're at right now. The long-term impact, again, is that we will have to reduce programs further when those set-asides are required to be refunded or replenished, and that the reductions in administrative instructional staffing will have to be made in 2021 or 21-22 if further efficiencies aren't found, or if we don't receive significant additional resources, such as state aid in particular. We can keep many of these pieces current, other than the reductions I've outlined, again, which are significant, but those other programs, by using those set-asides, that will have to be replenished. We are asking the community again to vote on both of the proposals, which passed well over 70% in both cases. The capital reserve withdrawal of $3 million to be able to continue the work on the projects, cover overages, and use that savings account the way it's intended to. That's a $3 million withdrawal that we are asking the community again for permission to make. That can't go towards anything else. That can only go towards this. And the other piece being the technology reserve fund, again, can only be used for this purpose, cannot go towards anything else. Some of the feedback received around, one-to-one, and boy, if they just didn't use those computers, we'd be okay. This money can only go towards that. It can't go towards solving any other problem or any other gap in the budget process, and it continues our use of that, our employment of that strategy, a $500,000 withdrawal from that fund. Its current balance is $1,590,297. The next steps, we will send a note out to the community early next week. We have another, it will be a reminder about the open houses, but with this proposal and additional information for people to take a look at. At 11 a.m. on the 4th, we have a budget open house boardroom. I'd encourage people to come. There have been plenty of seats at the previous ones and at the ones that we had today. Please come learn more information and ask questions. We're happy to explain where we're at and how we've gotten to this place. On the 5th, 5:30, we'll have another budget open house boardroom with plenty of seats. We have a note to the community on the 10th. On the 11th, 1 and 5, a budget open house here in the boardroom. On the 11th, we will have the budget hearing, the official budget hearing, and a Board of Education meeting on that night. On the 17th, we'll have another budget open house here in the boardroom, and on the 17th, we'll send another note to the community reminding them to vote on the 18th between 7 and 9 at Brighton High School. Along the way, if people have questions, please call, please write. We're happy to engage in that conversation, provide people with whatever other information they need. There will be another budget newsletter that is released, and all the legal publications will be made in alignment with the state's regulation. Again, this timeline and the vote are very much, not very much, they are exactly with what the state prescribes. We don't have an option to have a vote at another time or to look at it differently. And again, a reminder that if this vote does not pass, this is not a threat. This is what the reality is and what the legal ramifications are. We would have to adopt a contingent budget, which cuts those programs now that are being deferred. Any questions from the board?
Does anybody have anything? Take a breath and a drink of water.
It's all over here. I'd be happy to.
Clean up. I want to just clarify a couple of points to make to the community, whether you're here or watching us live or on broadcast. I think Dr. McGowan articulated very clearly as he began, we made a judgment, a decision when we adopted the original budget proposal. We always have known, since the capital project was approved, that at some point, because we did not have that entire amount baked in our budget, like most school districts have on debt service, and they just continue then to use that as that debt service rolls off, that we would have a heavy lift for the building project, the K-12 facilities project. That project could not have been put off any longer. So we're in the midst of rebuilding completely Council Rock School, and we fully intend to open that school again, reopen it as a new school with full-day kindergarten in September 2021. So that ship has sailed. And then the conundrum of, additional costs to operate the school district, and the conundrum of the inequity in state aid that is due to us that's not paid. So we made that decision willingly, and our professional opinion and our astute opinions based on leadership and all of us together was that budget was the best proposal to protect program, to set us on the right course for the long haul, but that we knew that it was a heavy lift. And so the proposal went out, the public voted, record numbers. The turnout was the highest it's ever been in Brighton. And we didn't achieve that 60% required, obviously. Thought exchange, feedback, 800 plus different individuals chimed in. We have all heard from folks, emails, phone calls, texts, since that week ago, Tuesday night at 10 p.m., 10:30 when we had finality on it. So I will tell you that staff, leadership team, staff, and the board have worked diligently, literally, through the holiday weekend since last Tuesday night. The reality is the reality. For all the reasons, and we can look back and reassess, but that budget could not get the required 60% vote. So the decision has been made to go forward with a budget that is at the cap, that protects the property tax cap legislation. It keeps us, everyone whole on the STAR rebate piece, not the STAR. That was never in danger, although there was quite a bit of a misinformation. But this is the only prudent element going forward that we believe we can offer. We know that the reductions, those of you that have seen the meeting on Tuesday when we went through line by line, all the different line items to discuss and deliberate a bit and talk about and offer opinions. What we're proposing tonight, what we expect to adopt here shortly, is the best possible proposal that can be going forward with right at the moment. We are going to have to deal with this issue as a community for a number of budgets to come. That just is the reality of it. There's two other items I want to make sure I mention because it's been brought up quite frequently. The state aid issue. The state aid issue is unfair. It has long been unfair. We've attempted to communicate about it. Many of our citizens have worked diligently and hard with us to try to get a fix. The politics of Albany and what goes on around that state aid formula are what is really holding us back and keeping us well under the percentage that we ought to be receiving. We have already begun discussing potential new strategies to try to get that fixed in Albany. We will be engaging the community further. We will be engaging our elected officials further and very definitively on what we need from them. Another element of that has been suggested to us would be legal action. I can tell you there are a number of members of the community that are contemplating legal action as citizens and as residents. The school district really does not have a legal basis to go ahead and file any action against the governor, the state of New York, or anybody else as far as being aggrieved. The funding that comes is the funding that comes politically. However, individual residents may have, and we've provided information that they've asked for, and I don't know where that will go. But the point being is neither of those two things I outlined, legal action and or advocacy work, are going to happen quickly. The reality of Albany is it's going to take us a while. It's going to take us time. It's going to take us campaigning, yelling, writing, calling, going to Albany, meeting locally. So we are going to face a situation, at least into the next budget year, that's going to be difficult, but we will face it. We will work through it. And as Dr. McGowan said, and the board is very comfortable with, we have great people in this district, be they food service, bus drivers, buildings and grounds, the entirety of our teaching staff and our administrative team. We'll get it done. We'll serve kids. It's going to be tough, okay? People just need to understand that. But it's the best possible situation that we're in currently right at the moment. I do want to do this. It's an unusual situation we're in. We have a large crowd tonight. If there is anyone who has a question regarding clarification, we're happy to take it. But I do have to tell you that what we've just outlined is what it is, okay? We've spent the last 8 days going through all the options. unless a particular board member or Dr. McGowan has something new, what's been outlined is what I anticipate we will vote to approve here very shortly. But if there's a question that requires clarification, something that someone doesn't understand that wants more information on, we're happy to do that right now. Yes?
I just want to clarify that the STAR rebate has nothing to do with the budget at all, right? It's a separate rebate. The STAR was never in jeopardy.
The one thing I will clarify on that, and we've learned a lot, let's say, about communicating. We've also learned a lot that when things are miscommunicated by individuals, purposefully, I will say, it's very difficult to overcome that.
Yeah.
The STAR situation, whether it be enhanced STAR or basic STAR, was never, ever at jeopardy. That's not what's written into the law. What's written into the tax cap legislation is that rebate check on that amount. And that varies based on income and property. That is built into the tax cap legislation to essentially force municipalities and school districts to not go out over the cap. It's a hammer, you know, and it is an amount, don't get me wrong. We're very cognizant that every amount is an amount. And the situation, as Dr. McGowan articulated, we heard it loud and clear, and we had 2 budget open houses today, and a number of folks brought it up. Every dollar is a dollar, and people are angry. They're angry about federal tax legislation. They're angry with Albany in some cases. They're angry with the Whole Foods Project situation. They're angry with property revaluations. It is what it is. We've heard that. We respect that. We all live here. We all, you know, have tax bill also, so.
STAR is used, the confusion is that STAR, the max STAR amount is used as a multiplier to figure out your rebate. But it's not your STAR. It's just used as one of the multipliers to determine what your rebate check was.
Yeah.
But it is not your STAR.
And in the case of we are proposing a budget now that requires a simple majority, 50 plus one person, and it has nothing to do at all with any of those ramifications.
It
The
does not-
penalty is, though, if the budget this time, by law, is defeated, our only option is to implement a contingency budget, and that, our ability around that, our flexibility around that is almost nil. It's very defined as far as how that can move forward, and a number of those items were articulated. And all the materials tonight, the materials we worked through the other night, all of that is or will be posted on the website. Again, if you'd like, you can watch that, our 3.5-hour workshop the other night where we did go through tremendous detail. The budget newsletters will be printed up as soon as we can and be out in the mail. Those who will be away or otherwise engaged can get an absentee ballot. See our district clerk, Kim, and you need to fill out an application to the folks at home also for that ballot. We have a number of upcoming meetings and budget open houses to continue to answer questions, but we'll continue to engage the community, and not only for the immediacy of what we're facing, but for the longer haul. We need everybody to understand and to help get on board with that. So,
Just to be very clear, though, this does not impact STAR or the rebate in any way, shape, or form.
yeah. Yes.
We talked about some of these programs needing to be replenished in the future. What's that going to look like? And I know it's hard to predict, but in future budgets, are we going to be looking to go over the cap again?
No.
No.
Well, Dr.
the
McGowan
program.
says no automatically. I'm not comfortable saying no to anything beyond where we sit right here tonight, okay? Just because we don't know. Unlikely, I will agree with him on that, based on where things are right now, right, this situation. What will happen is, we are going to open Council Rock with full-day K. We have to equip that building with furniture and equipment. So that bill is going to come due. So we are going to have to get that money from these other reductions that have been outlined for outgoing years, unless on the revenue side that we can get that improved. And that really goes back to the state aid situation. I mean, there's not really, our revenue sources, many of you have heard us discuss at this board table, Brighton taxpayers already pay 67% of our operating costs. It's one of the highest in all of New York State. It's unfair. It's been unfair for a long time. But that's the major source of revenue. In most districts, it's flipped. the major source of revenue comes from the state aid formula. So,
Chris, my gut reaction is because it's very clear to me that people do not want us to do that. So that's why I say it that way. I mean, jokingly, but I'm pretty serious about us taking that lesson away, that was problematic for people, and making sure I'm clear on that, and the amount was problematic for people. But I will tell you going forward, the way that because this was a long-term plan, budgets have consequences that are beyond 1 year. What it means is that unless somehow funding changes dramatically, and by the way, already a dramatic increase in funding would mean just being able to hold on to what we have. But all the places that we looked at cost savings over the next several years, the consolidation of bus runs, the midday run for the beginning of full-day kindergarten, we had hoped to be able to repurpose that towards other initiatives, perhaps changing start times. That's off the table. That is not a possibility now. It is not possible to move ahead with those types of changes when we will simply be able to try and hold on to the programs that we have, and likely will not be able to do that. Those will have to be reduced in future budgets because we are borrowing out of what we had set aside for those program implementations to do that.
Taxes won't come up, but programs will definitely be reduced.
Correct.
we'll look at all aspects of it. We'll stay as flexible as we can, but I do agree with Dr. McGowan. I think all of us would. It'll be very difficult 1 year from now as we sit to go out with a budget over a cap, you know. Another question?
Yeah, with respect to the contingency budget, if the vote fails, our programs, is outdoor education considered a field trip? I see that field trips are listed as for a cut. Is outdoor education considered a field trip? Would that program be on the
Peter, that's a good question. I think in general, it's become a pretty significant part of our academic program. However, it is a non-mandated program, so it certainly would be on the table. We stay away from articulating in the moment exactly which field trip and exactly which place we'd go and exactly, because ultimately what we have to do is say, okay, then these are the resources we have to work with, and work with our leadership team, teacher leaders, other staff members to say then what is most impactful, what can we avoid, where else can we move things around. So I wouldn't commit in this moment to outdoor ed will happen or not happen. I can just tell you that it is a non-mandated program, as are many of the things that I listed.
And that's true of a number of the issues raised as we sit here today. So we're going to go out and ask for approval of an 80, what's my number? $80,522,000 spending plan, which is at the 2.34. How that exactly occurs, building to building, is up to Kevin and leadership team. So in other words, item like, for example, athletic assistant coaches. Technically, I forget the name of the term. but
Program assistant.
Program assistants for athletics. That will be up to the athletic director, our principal, and our coaches to look at where those needs are. So today, we would not, many of these things really can't be identified by a specific sport, a subject matter, or an individual. But that will have to happen within that realm of program. So there was another.
I just have a quick comment. I think it's very difficult for people to visualize what these cuts look like, right? And I'm going to be very open. I'm supportive of the budget. We moved here 2 years ago because we wanted our children to come to this school district. We moved in from out of state for this district. And I think it's very difficult when these are abstract concepts to people. Fields and field trips and clubs, right? That could be anything. Well, that's not something my kid's interested probably, right? And I understand the hesitation to outline exactly what the cuts are, but I think when you're communicating to a community that is used to having a very high level of service, it would behoove the board in its communications to get a little more specific. It needs to hit them where it hurts. And it needs to hit all of us where it hurts when you're communicating. These are the realities of what we are going to have to look at. So outdoor ed is something our son will be part of next year if it remains on the table.
Right.
I will be very upset if that is gone. And I think a lot of people who may have voted no for the budget would feel the same.
Sure.
But they don't recognize that that is a real concrete piece of programming that could get cut.
Understood.
So that's just an offering
Sure.
from a communication perspective.
Good, thank you.
I appreciate that, so if I can have 30 seconds to make a comment.
You can have the,
I'm gonna,
we did 3.5 hours on
Yeah.
Tuesday, we're golden right now.
But for the people in the room, I'm going to read off a list of specifically, so there's many, but specifically what student impact and parent impact directly, right? So professional development has a significant impact and affects our performance, et cetera. But to your point, a contingent budget, we would be reducing foreign language grade 6, for sure. Grade 4 instrumental music, literacy coaches, instructional coaches, the CPSC position. But again, to get back to specific student positions, family navigator position, that's mental health support, security staffing, the additional diversity equity position, an additional class size position K2, another position 3-5, 2 positions 6-8, 2 positions at the high school level, 1 for electives, 1 class size, but essentially 2 positions. Field trips, all the athletic program assistants, an administrative position, 2 administrative positions, the elementary summer reading program, very specifically, gone. The high school summer school, entirely gone, the whole summer school program. Extended studies program, completely reduced. And and all the other things I listed, so in this proposal, and each of these very specific items as well. In addition to increased amounts for where we've deferred or reduced, those are either completely gone or significantly increased from what I mentioned. And only because in the interest of time, these are the specific to parents. These will be reduced in a contingent budget. Several of them in future budgets because of this current situation.
And the other thing too, and we appreciate your comment, and one of the things is we've tried to ask leadership team to be as specific as possible. The Tuesday night meeting, we went through a lot of things with specificity. There are a lot of the elements though that would be a to be determined. For example, clubs and activities. That would be incumbent upon the high school, for example, Tom Hall and his team, to look at the amount of reduction they would be responsible for, and then look at how many students are involved in this club or that club, the stipends involved, things. So there's movement to that. So we've tried to be as specific as we can where we can, but I understand exactly what you mean. We have had some questions from folks who said, well, what does this line mean? What does that line mean? Especially when acronyms are involved, which we all plead guilty to. So we appreciate your comment, well taken. We're trying to get better at that.
I think that there's also an element when you come to naming specific reductions right at this moment, that these are also real things that affect real staff and real students. And I think at the moment, we know the reductions are coming, but causing a panic right now at this meeting is not productive. I think for the people who are working within the 4 walls, that's important to me.
And part of the discussion of specific individuals' employment and executive session thing, that's one of those things too that you get involved with. So we will, but we've heard that, and I would promise you this, that moving forward as we work through this upcoming year and into the next building the next budget, we will make sure that we are as specific as possible in any area that is either facing a reduction or a change, or where we still have needs that have to be met, where you may have to increase an area and you may have to borrow from another area, whether it be mandated or just needs that drive it. So we will attempt to do that, so thank you. All right, then I'm sorry, was there another question?
Yes. My question may not be able to be answered by the board, but maybe Dr. McGowan can. If grade 6 foreign language is eliminated, what course will replace that in the grade 6 student schedule?
I don't know, there won't be a specific course because we won't add a new program. We'd have to look at the schedule and figure out then within the school day and what is afforded to kids. Do we change our period schedule? Do we make other adjustments? It's a really hard question to answer without, affecting other initiatives. For example, our teachers are pretty much at the max in terms of the instructional time that they can provide. So just saying, okay, well, we'll take 15 minutes of that and extend their ELA class or their math class is really not possible. They're already at the max. And kids are likely at their max, no offense to the ELA or math teacher, in terms of the amount of time they're in that class, right? It likely will create the void of it being a study hall or other opportunity that's certainly not as meaningful as being in foreign language.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, folks. I then will turn to the board. Any further questions, comments? Board members, do you have anything at all additional to add?
Thank you for the excellent explanations.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, again, thanks
Both of you.
to Dr. McGowan, Mr. Alimo, our entire team, again, has worked tirelessly on this, and to the community for your feedback and continued support. We appreciate all of that. Our teaching staff, it's not been easy week or so for that group, and all of our principals and building leaders. We will move forward, and we can count on their support, and, we will get through this, and we will move on, so.
I think this is a very responsible budget, and I think to keep what we have,
Right, then at this point, then I will ask for a motion. The motion would be to approve the resolution as prepared by Lou Alimo through Dr. McGowan, dated May 30th, for adoption of the 2019-2020 budget, along with the property tax report card, and that does include the spending plan as we outlined it, and it is an anticipated tax levy increase of 2.34%, which is within the limits of the property tax cap. And it does also, as Dr. McGowan articulated, include the two propositions, which by law have to be voted on again. So that's why they're part of this. May we have that motion?
So moved.
second,
Moved by Andrea, seconded by Marv. Any further conversation or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. And we will have, all that material is and will be updated, the postings, budget newsletters will be going out shortly, and we really do encourage continued feedback from the public, questions, clarifications, anything that we can't answer. We do have next Tuesday, the 4th, we have a board meeting that night at 7 o'clock, which is our annual tenure reception and granting of tenure to our teachers that are up for that. And we also have that day at 11 a.m. a budget open house on the 4th. So that'll be the next opportunity for folks. Anything other this evening, Dr. McGowan, that we need? Any board members, any other related business? A motion, please, to adjourn then?
so moved.
Second.
Moved by Marv, seconded by Julene. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.
This has been a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.